And I remember meeting Ambassador Vishwanathan in the Ministry of External Affairs. He was the JS LAC region at the time. And I remember him talking about the region, and I got very excited. Several years ago, when I started traveling, I think my first visit to the region was somewhere in 2002, 2003.
Mhm.
I think it was 2003, 2004. I took my mother for to Rio for the carnival. And I remember, like looking at the people, you saw them with a very different eye. The recent years, I can walk in Quito without feeling scared. I can walk on the streets of Bolivia or in El Salvador. Of course, my hotel would not let me step out. I'm talking about as recent as 2018, 2019. I was in El Salvador, and my
Mhm.
hotel guy said, if you step out, I will not open the hotel door for you to come back in. People from this part of the globe, not only the West or the Chinese or the Europeans, they're open to this part. So
Right.
yeah, it's a
Right.
change. For me, it's a change.
Hola y bienvenidos otra vez a otra entrevista de mi canal de YouTube Español por Dentro. Hoy tengo una invitada muy especial porque en nuestro canal nosotros hemos hecho entrevistas con diplomáticos, con gente que está trabajando en el área de asuntos exteriores y por eso tengo una invitada que realmente ha dedicado toda su vida en hacer trabajo relacionado con asuntos exteriores entre India y América Latina, aparte de otras regiones del mundo. Tengo hoy conmigo una periodista destacada, señora Huma Siddiqui. Thank you so much, Ms. Siddiqui, for being here.
Thank you for having me on your podcast. Really appreciate it. Thank
No,
you so much.
the pleasure is all mine. I must tell my audience that it's an honor for me. I've been trying to have Ms. Siddiqui on my podcast since quite some time, but due to her very pressing schedule, she was not able to. But finally, she's been able to. So thank you so much, Ms. Siddiqui. Once again, it's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on my channel.
Thank you. Really. In fact, I'm sorry I've just not been able to give you time because there were so many other commitments. And, like how it is as a reporter, you have to run around. And I'm sorry for that, but still, I'm here. Thank you so
No,
much.
no, no. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. So, let me give a brief intro of Ms. Huma Siddiqui so that the people who may not be aware of would know the kind of work that she is doing. So, Huma Siddiqui is a seasoned senior journalist with over 3 decades of experience covering defense, space, and the Ministry of External Affairs. She began her reporting career in October 1993 with a reputed newspaper and then transitioned in 2018. A graduate of Miranda House with a postgraduate degree from Delhi University, she has carved a niche in reporting on defense, space, and foreign affairs. Notably, she is one of the pioneering women in defense reporting in India, seamlessly integrating defense and foreign policy with economic diplomacy. Huma has extensively covered regions such as Africa and Latin America from India. So, Ms. Siddiqui, I think with such a wonderful profile and the body of work that you have, I'm sure that people who are watching this channel and my followers would be able to appreciate the role that Latin America is playing in India and as well as India playing in Latin America. So let's straight away head into the set of questions that I have for you, Ms. Siddiqui. So my first question to you is, how did your interest as a journalist on Latin America develop? Could you just unravel that a bit for us?
Yeah, so there are two, three things to this, and so you'll have to be a little bit patient with my storytelling.
Absolutely.
Um, uh, Number one, my I never knew till very recently. My father was a great fan of the region. I didn't know that. Very recently, when I was going through some of the old papers, his files, I suddenly found a photo of his with Fidel Castro. That was one. I mean, I didn't know that. I only found it just a few years ago. But when I talk about journalism, the person who actually gave me, because of whom this region has become a passion. I'm sure you're familiar with the name of Ambassador Vishwanathan.
Yes.
He was the person who, kind of motivated me into reporting on the region, because when I started reporting on the region was, of course, way back in 1999. Like my first interview was with the Brazilian ambassador. She was a lady diplomat at the time, and my editor asked me to go and do her interview. But it was not about the region as in region. We were doing something with Brazil, and I had to go and, sort of do an interview. And then came the Chilean ambassador, which was in, again, I think 2003, 4 or something. And I remember meeting Ambassador Vishwanathan in the Ministry of External Affairs. He was the JS LAC region at the time. And I remember him talking about the region, and I got very excited the way he explained. And I thought that, why not? I mean, nobody is writing about the region, so I should be the first one. So, yes, that's how the journey started,
Mhm.
and then, somewhere down the line, I suddenly realized that my mother was very fascinated by the region. And you may or may not believe it, but I think my mother was one lady who visited Sao Paulo and Rio in Brazil, Colombia. She wanted to visit these countries. She was fascinated, and she would never want to come back to India. She would say she would like to go and stay there. And I'm saying, hey, excuse me, when do I get a chance? So of course, I visited many of those countries with her, and then
Mhm.
later on without her. But yeah, that's how I mean, I'm looking at it like professionally. I would give it to my bosses and Ambassador Vishwanathan. That's how I got excited. But somewhere in my blood, I think because of my parents, I'm very,
Mhm.
passionate about the region.
Wow,
Sorry
fantastic.
if I took so
Fantastic.
much of your
No,
time.
no, not at
Yeah.
all, not at all, ma'am. In fact, at any point of time during this interview, if you remember any interesting anecdotes which may or may not relate to the question that's being asked, please feel free to share that, because I'm sure that will enrich the knowledge of people watching and listening to this. So,
Thank you so much.
great. So I think that's a very interesting answer that you've given, and your journey as to how this interest in Latin America developed. So my next question, Ms. Siddiqui, is what are your expert areas of journalism related to Latin America, and how do you go about doing your research?
So, as you read out my profile, I do defense as well. And so, my first few stories, or let's say, yeah, we call in journalism, we call it stories, or we don't call it articles, we call it stories or my copy. So, it all started with defense, and then gradually I started getting into, till my bosses started telling me, what do you mean by defense? Where is the economic diplomacy? Where is the energy cooperation? Where is the food security? And I'm saying, why do I have to do all this? But later on I realized, on a hindsight, that is all part of foreign policy, and you cannot isolate these, whether it is your energy security, food, your space, your defense. These are all integrated. We may like to divide it separately, but that's how I started writing. And when you sort of say, how do I go around doing my research? Of course, I read up a lot, and I stick not to the Western reports because that's dangerous ground. But yes, I like to read a lot, and whether it is the newspapers, which of course there was no Google Translate before, but I would ask my friends here and there and everywhere to translate it for me and tell me exactly what is written in those. Like I mentioned to you, and I sort of shared with you, I don't know the Spanish language. I'm still in the process of getting myself to learn it. But yes, then talking to experts who have served in the region, or talking to research scholars who are doing work on the region, they were my source of information and work before I would write a story. And not only that, suddenly I realized that I'm sitting and writing a story in Delhi,
Mhm.
and how would anyone know what is Ecuador all about?
Yeah.
We are writing about helicopters. Yeah, and by the way, and it may surprise you, the many people would say, huh, Ecuador, Bolivia, what are these places? And I'm saying they're countries. Countries where? Oh, in the South American region. What do you mean? Do we have any business with them? And I'm saying, yeah, we do. So, yeah, and I decided that it's time to pack my bag and start traveling to these countries.
Mhm,
And so initially, when my mother was traveling, I would, tag along with her. And once I get into that big ticket through her, I would then go to other places and do my, talking or meeting or wherever I wanted to.
yeah.
And that was kind of interesting because, that gave me a window in, um, uh, how the people are living, what exactly is happening, how our missions are working there,
Mhm, mhm,
and where more can India work, which are the regions. And so yeah, that's how I started writing, and that's my then I also understood that you cannot only talk about carnivals,
mhm,
and you cannot just talk about yoga.
mhm,
And I would come back to India and I would go in, because again, I have been doing foreign policy since I think now decades, defense for decades. And I would come back and tell them here, hey, you know what? We need to do this and we need to do this. And then they would look at me and say, oh, okay, okay, we'll do it.
mhm,
So yeah, so that's the background, how I like do my reporting, and how I have been sort of talking to people and gaining knowledge from them, because I feel that youngsters like you,
mhm,
or people who know the language, can sort of give me more details rather than me just reading up the English versions. Because
mhm,
again, I'm doing Google Translate,
mhm,
and it's not going to give me the nuances behind a story. It's just like if I'm writing a story in English and you're trying to learn it or read it in Spanish, you will not get
mhm,
the essence of it. You will understand the peripherals, but you will not understand the depth of what I'm saying. So
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think that's very rightly put, ma'am. And you mentioned about traveling to these Latin American countries. So, why was it important for you to travel to these countries, ma'am? And how was your experience of traveling to Latin America? When you first started, and then your later trips. So, how has that experience been, and how has it changed over your subsequent trips?
see, Siddharth, very simple. When you are writing or working on something, let's say you are doing podcasts,
Mhm,
as an example, you let's assume for 2 minutes that you're sitting somewhere in one of the South American countries, and you're trying to talk to people here in India. While we are talking, still at the back of your mind, you will say, hey, you know what? I still need to understand, how do these people behave? Or,
mhm,
what's going on in their heads? Or let's go and see their body language. Right now, I'm just talking to you.
mhm,
You are telling me, Huma, Latin America is blah, 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 blah. And I'm saying, okay, sir. And I'm taking down notes and I'm just writing it. But when I'm traveling to these countries, you get to read their body language. That is very important for any reporter.
mhm,
I can ask you to give me your comments on a WhatsApp. All these things have come now. First, they were not there. So, I can ask you, hey, why can't you give me your comment on the phone or a bite on the phone? And I'll try to integrate it, because that's what the technology is. But when I started traveling several years ago, when I started traveling, I think my first visit to the region was somewhere in 2002, 2003.
mhm,
I think it was 2003, 2004. I took my mother to Rio for the carnival. And I remember, like looking at the people, you saw them with a very different eye, because for me, that was a very different kind of a culture versus the culture that I probably saw in the US, where I used to travel a lot. or in Europe where I used to travel, but that region was new for me. And so at that time, I didn't know Portuguese, neither did I know Spanish. But we used to manage it because the hotel staff would, help us with somebody accompanying us wherever. They were fascinated by my mom, so that was the initial years. But later on, I realized that, they understand us. It's not as if they're not understanding what I'm saying. There is some complementarity there where they understand your body language or they understand your gestures, and they're very helpful. Any part of South America you can go, any country. Only two countries are left, Nicaragua and Cuba. Rest I have visited.
Mm.
Okay, I'm not talking about the Caribbean as the Caribbean, but yes, I have covered a lot of the countries in the region, and wherever I have gone, including El Salvador and Guatemala, best best experiences I have had. This is
Mm.
not to say that in other places I had a bad experience, but really awesome. And again, I'm saying it from the perspective of a journalist slash traveler, because people would tell me, hey, don't go to these countries. There are gangs, there are gang wars, And I would say, hey, but I want to go there. If I'm writing about them, I need to know who are these people I'm writing about. And there are countries beyond America, there are countries beyond Europe. So I need to know, and I need to introduce my, like the Indian readers that I have, to understand there are countries beyond
Mhm.
Europe or the US, or beyond Gulf. There are
Mhm.
other countries where you should go. And my experience in each country, each and every country I have visited, as and mind you, they all have been on my own. It's not as if somebody took me there. And I went on my own with my own bag and baggage, and it's been awesome.
Mm. Wow.
And I would
Wow.
recommend everyone to go there just to see for themselves.
Mhm.
While we talk about businesses,
Mhm.
mentioning the distance is a problem for them.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I would say, hey, you know what? This is no distance.
Mhm.
Learn to travel. If you're a traveler, you don't mind the distance, or do you? And
Mhm.
you're a businessman. I'm sure you are going to go in a, business class or a first class. Not
Mhm.
like me. I'm just a traveler in an economy class.
Mhm.
So yeah, my experience has been awesome
Wow.
compared to several years ago,
Mhm.
and now fast forward, now awesome. And the
Mhm.
countries have changed. They have changed a lot. They've
Mhm.
really changed a lot. Yes.
Could you? Yeah, I mean, I was interested in you telling us a little bit about this change. Um.
Change in the sense that they have become more tourist friendly. Not
Mhm. Mhm.
tourist friendly would wrong to use that word, because a lot of Americans and Europeans visit those countries.
Mhm.
It's the Indians who don't go there.
Mhm.
But yeah, like you feel more secure. But
Mhm.
honestly, in my case, I always felt secure.
Mhm.
But in the recent years, I can walk in Quito without feeling scared. I can walk
Mhm.
on the streets of Bolivia
Mhm.
or in El Salvador. Of course, my hotel would not let me step out. I'm talking about as recent as 2018, 2019. I was in El Salvador, and my
Mhm.
hotel guy said, if you step out, I will not open the hotel door for you to come back in,
Mhm.
because there are gangs out there. So I need to go back to El Salvador to check out whether the gangs are there on the streets or not. But otherwise, when we talk about Colombia, when we talk about Argentina, when we talk about Brazil, or we talk about other countries in the region, they have changed in terms of how they look at the visitors,
Mhm.
what, terms of security,
Mhm.
of course, the political atmosphere, of course, that matters too. Because when I went to Caracas in, that was in 2016, 17, it was like, okay, I need to, but I'm reading reports that it's bad right now, but I need to see it for myself.
mm,
So probably maybe soon I'll head that way and I'll come back with the updates. But yes, it's now a place where you can easily go and do business without feeling कि अभी the tomorrow morning the government is going to fall. It's not
mm,
that it's not that bad.
mm,
Things have changed in terms of political stability, in terms of security, in terms of your money is not going to get stuck there if you're a businessman.
mm,
You will be able to carry out, and I think most of these countries have now opened up and have improved their laws,
mhm,
and have are offering more incentives for people to come in, which was not the case. It was a case but not so open at the time.
mhm,
Now things, I mean, I'm looking at it as a change. For me
mm,
it's a change. Maybe
mm,
some businesses can stand up and say, no, 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 Miss Siddiqui is talking rubbish, it was
mm,
always the case. Could be. But for
mm,
me, I feel now they are more open
mm,
and welcoming people from this part of the globe,
mm,
not only the West or the Chinese or the Europeans. They're
mm.
open to this part. So
Right,
yeah, it's a
right.
change. For me, it's a change.
Mm. Okay, very interesting, ma'am. And so in your travels to Latin America, what are the things that the Latin Americans have been most fascinated about India in your interactions? Could you share some anecdotes or interesting conversations about
Yeah.
India? Yeah.
So, for them, India is one country which like a typical, Western countries, they had this fascination about the snakes and the elephants on the streets,
Mm-hmm,
which is true.
mm-hmm,
Because frankly, that's the impression they got from the Western media, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I mean, I can't blame the Western media totally, but let's leave it at that. But yes, they have been very fascinated by Bollywood.
mm-hmm,
They have been very fascinated by the Indian cuisine.
mm-hmm,
They have been very fascinated by some some part of the Hindu mythology, and they have been very fascinated by yoga, of course. But then yoga is not only coming from India, because they have been doing yoga more than we have been doing yoga. And um, yeah, of course, they're fascinated by our IT industry, our education system,
mm-hmm,
our Ayurveda.
mm-hmm,
They're very interested. They're very, very keen on tapping these sectors here in India.
mm-hmm,
And they in some places I have also noticed, when it comes to ready-made garments, they are very fascinated by some of our Indian dresses.
mm-hmm,
Whether we like it or not, they like to wear saris, they like to wear kurtas, they like, I mean, basically they're fascinated by the way some of the Hindi, television serials, they are very
yeah.
fascinated by that. So whatever they see there, they want to replicate the same in their country. So that's very interesting. But yeah, they are very fascinated. But I remember one incident. I was in Peru a few years ago, and I was, like, obviously I was walking around aimlessly, aimlessly in the sense because I was looking around. It was a handicraft square. It was like an area where all the Peruvian handicrafts were, available. And I was walking from shop to shop. And I was with my brother. And when I came out, suddenly, a few people ran towards us and they caught, like one person grabbed my hand, one person grabbed my brother's hand, and I said, huh, what's going on? And my brother speaks Spanish. And so I looked at him and terrified, what's happening? So I said, what are they saying? And so he told me they're saying Shah Rukh Khan, Bollywood. And in those days, I don't know which movie was it, and they kept talking about that movie. And then my brother said something to them in Spanish, and I started crying because I got scared. I said, "What the hell was happening here?" So then, like they realized that I'm crying, and then they started wiping my tears, and cried more than because I thought that they'll probably strangle me to death. Which of course was not the case. But later on, I realized that they are looking for Bollywood movies. And remember, in those days, there was this movie Robert, that South Indian movie, and
Yeah.
that was being filmed at Machu Picchu at the time when this incident happened. And I remember, they said Bollywood, Shah Rukh, and they kept shouting Shah Rukh Khan, and I felt so, I said, wow, this part of the world is talking about Shah Rukh Khan. So then from there, that place, we moved to another place where my brother told me, you get very good ceviche here. So I said, oh, okay. Not that I eat ceviche, but I went there, and suddenly, while my brother was speaking Spanish, I was like looking lost, like a lost bird sitting there. And one server comes to the table and said, India. No, oh no, not India, sorry. Hindu. I mean, for me, it was sounding as if they're saying, I'm a Hindu.
Mhm.
And I'm shaking my head like fool. No, it's not. So my brother said, they're saying Indian.
Yeah.
They mean that you're an Indian. And I
Mm.
said, okay. So, but and they were so fascinated by the fact that we were Indians. And the same thing happened with me. I think it was in Bolivia,
Mhm.
in Quito. In
Mhm.
Quito, it was the Quito day. It was December, cold December night, and I remember they had a Quito parade, National Day parade, and I walked with the parade in the whole city, without realizing that I'm walking, till somebody looks back at me and says, "You're from Bollywood?" I said, no. Till I realized, oh, they don't mean Bollywood as in
Yeah.
Bollywood. They mean that I'm from that land. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I feel some of them, they were interesting. I think in Brazil. No, not
Mhm.
in Brazil, or was it in Argentina? And
Mhm.
when I was in Buenos Aires, and they said, "Oh, Gandhi," and I'm saying, "What do you mean by Gandhi?" And I was in a tour bus. Those two double decker buses. So I was
Yeah.
on the top, and like suddenly we passed by the street where there's a bookstore, which is called Gandhi.
Mm.
And I said, "Oh, they must be meaning that." Till I realized they all are looking at me and pointing towards Gandhi. So later on, I remember asking. I think I came back to the hotel and I asked them. I said, "What is this?" So they told me, "Oh, that's about your father of the nation." And there's this bookstore, which is, I think it was a bookstore, and they said, "No, it's out of respect." They meant you're from the Gandhi country. They did not know what to say to you, but so they kept saying Gandhi, Gandhi. So, like, yeah. So these are some of the things that come off,
Yeah.
uh, off the, like right now. Otherwise, yeah, there are lots of them, but
Oh, no,
this
that's
would do.
wonderful, ma'am. So Miss Siddiqui, it's like I really do feel all the points that you've mentioned just now are so important, and especially Bollywood. Although I guess now a lot more realistic movies are being made in Bollywood, but even then, I think as a soft power, Bollywood plays such a crucial role. And I don't even know whether some of our actors like Shah Rukh Khan and others, especially Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, who are extremely popular in some of these South American countries. I'm not sure whether they even know about that, so that probably they can do something with the government of India to sort of make Indian presence a lot more known in Latin America. Anything word on that, like how soft power, especially Bollywood, can play a
You
role?
know, When it comes to soft power, I'm glad you asked me this because, like Shah Rukh Khan has done a program in Argentina. He's done, what do you call that? Khatron ke Khiladi? Some
Okay.
kind, yeah, he has probably done one of those programs there in Buenos Aires, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Was it Shah Rukh Khan or Rohit Shetty? But it has been done. But coming down
Rohit
to,
Shetty, yeah. Yeah, Rohit
nah,
Shetty is the
Rohit
one who's
Shetty.
known for that, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of them has done it, but there was a time when IFAR awards were expected to take place in Peru, if I'm not mistaken. But my thing is that even the Bollywood has been going to countries only. Of course, they have gone to country like Cuba. Salman Khan has made that movie one, Ek Tha Tiger,
Yeah.
and you have Dhoom One or Dhoom Two in Brazil. Then you have this Machu Picchu. This movie has been made there. But if you really, I'm sure you have also traveled in the region, and if you have not, you must make it a point to travel around. Maybe pick up the small ones, which are not very expensive. And there are beautiful locations which
Mhm.
can be used by Bollywood. Why only Bollywood? Like, I was talking to the Peruvian minister the other day, and she was very clear. It's not only Bollywood, and in fact, the entire Indian film
Film
industry
industry.
is
Hmm.
so huge that
Hmm.
this they can it can work both ways. Even India has some good, beautiful locations,
Hmm.
maybe not suitable to their to their movies or to their dramas or whatever they're trying to do,
Hmm.
but there are opportunities for both sides to play this into this soft power. And soft power is not only necessarily making Bollywood movies of any language, but you can have drama serials. You can have different kind of shows like IFA awards, or maybe
Hmm.
you can have some kind of a, I would say that if I am allowed to, feel free if you can run it or if you cannot. These countries also need to come forward to Bollywood. I mean, come and promote them. Of course, some of the countries are promoting their, but they imagine that it is already being promoted. So
Hmm.
they don't make that extra effort. For
Hmm.
them, it's already there. But I would tell everyone, through
Hmm.
you also, I would tell everyone, I would urge both sides, whether it is academics, whether it is your cuisine, whether it is your traditional dresses, whether it is your dramas, whether it is your cinema, it should be, push it.
Hmm.
Bollywood is known Bollywood, even if it is Tollywood, or whether it is whichever part of India, but people know it only as Bollywood. I'm
Hmm.
sure you would agree with
Hmm.
me. I mean, how many of us say, "Hey, you know what? I am an actor in Tollywood."
Hmm.
How many would say that?
Yeah.
So for them, for overseas, for outside people,
Hmm.
we are Bollywood.
Yeah.
And we need to explore these countries as well, not just to sit here and go only to Europe, where there are snow-clad mountains. There are snow-clad mountains in Chile also. There are
Hmm.
snow-clad mountains in Bolivia too. If you
Hmm.
want, there are locations out there. This is not to say that somebody is giving me money to promote them, but since I have seen those countries, which would take me back to your very first question, I have seen these countries, and I know they have beautiful locations where I would look, given an opportunity, I would probably go for a destination wedding, or I would probably go for a movie or a drama, or,
Hmm.
uh, or maybe just as a get together. Though, of course, distances are huge.
Hmm.
There's no
Hmm.
doubt about it. But I'm
Hmm.
sure the corporate, if the rich can go there for their honeymoon, why can't you go there for your
Hmm.
honeymoon? There are mid-level locations as well where you can go and enjoy life. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. I'm also looking at it in your soft power. I also would urge, India has this thing that we do exchange program for we invite their journalists into our countries, their influencers into our countries, to into our country, to show what we can offer or what we are offering, whereas it doesn't come from those countries. They don't really believe in this kind of a program, because some of them say that they don't have the funds, which could be true. But then it has to be both sides, which I always tell them, as and when. But then you know how it happens. They would say, "Oh, she wants to visit my country. Ah, oh, that's why she's saying that." Little do they know that I've already visited their country. I have visited Costa Rica 2, 3 times. And I mean, the third time just happened because, like somewhere I was getting stuck in my travel plan. So I said, okay, we'll stop over in Costa Rica and then I'll move forward. So, yeah, there are many things that, many countries need to get into this of exchanging programs with the journalist, or think tanks joining hands, because I don't know who's joining hands with whom and what exactly are they doing, because they come up with this, hey, you know what, language is the problem, but we still invite you.
Mm.
If India can invite, where we have our different languages,
Right.
then I'm sure these countries should also play that role in the soft power. That's my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah.
Take it or leave it, I don't know,
Mhm.
but that's the way I look at it.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
if you think this is not appropriate, please feel free to remove it from
No,
there.
no, ma'am. I think that's fair enough. What you've spoken are very pertinent points, and in fact, in some way, it answers the next question. But I'd still ask you in case if you have something more to add to that. So, my next question was, what are the areas where India and Latin America have yet to unlock, the bilateral potential that they have? So, you've already spoken about a lot of the things in terms of soft power, but still, anything in terms of even, tangible things that you can look at which are not
I,
soft powers.
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked me this, because I feel very, very strongly about it, and which I was just telling before I got online with you here. I was telling, one of my colleagues, he was just kind of asking me, like somehow, for some reason, people think that I'm an expert in LAC region. So much so that even my MEA tells the same thing during the official briefings. And I always say the same thing. India is not only about yoga, okay?
Mhm.
India is not only about Ayurveda, which
Mhm.
is good. You want yoga, you want Ayurveda, okay, fine, okay. But India has more to offer. India has lots and lots of more things to offer. Then you say, okay, now you're saying this, so what is it? And I'm surprised that they don't look at us for defense, or they don't even look at us as for space. Of course, some of them are looking at us for space. Some of them, but it's not enough.
Mhm.
They prefer Europe, or they prefer China, or they prefer or they prefer the US. But I would say, you know what? Look at us. Maybe you may not agree. When I say you may not agree, some of the countries may not agree that the defense platforms that we are offering is not as good as what the Americans probably could be offering. But I as an individual, as an Indian, as a reporter, I would tend to disagree, because there are several other platforms within the defense sector that we are considered to be good.
Mhm.
One of them is shipbuilding. The other one is submarines. The third one is the missiles, and many other related components, you would call it, or off spins, you would call it, but sorry, spin-offs, you would call it. And yeah, then when we talk about space, I remember traveling to Bolivia, and we talked about space. I went to the space agency. Shocker, they didn't know that we have a space agency till I and this was, I'm talking about 2017. Yeah, I was in La Paz 2017. Yeah, 2018 till I had a long conversation. And this was on my own. Huh? Nobody sent me there to talk. I was just kind of curious because that's what I write, which takes me back to the response to your very first question, why do I travel? Because then you come to know where we are also, we have our shortcomings. We are not reaching out. We need to reach out. Science and technology is another part where we are really good at it. We are IT. Of course, they are very interested in IT now. We have a lot of security solutions, whether it is cyber security, whether it is digital payments. They're looking at it. And the way I understand, the forthcoming visit of the Chilean president, maybe by the time this will be up, digital payment is one of the things that everyone is looking at. And of course, education is another one. When I say education, I don't necessarily mean that, university level. They're looking for teachers, like countries like Paraguay is looking for English teachers who will go and teach English there. And the same thing in Bolivia is what I had heard at that time, that they were looking at some, people to come and teach. Um Things could have changed now over the last 2 years or post COVID, but this is the last that I heard, that they're looking for education. Higher education is some of the countries they're very keen. And we can tie up with universities, does not necessarily mean that they have to come here. They can sit at home or maybe sit in their home countries and continue with the education system here. I mean, universities tie ups. And then your education, your healthcare. Healthcare is another sector where we can play a major role, and they are interested. Uh, Animal husbandry is another area which some of the countries have expressed their interest. And we need to really push. That doesn't mean that I push everything in one go. These are the things which take time when you're talking. And when I say animal husbandry, or I'm talking about healthcare, I was doing an interview with somebody the other day, and I think the minister of Peru, and she was very clear that they would like to, sort of do more of interaction at the healthcare level, which means medical devices as well. And it means, hospital tie-ups, or maybe I would suggest that, countries like Ecuador, if you know, they uh, all these life-saving drugs are very expensive. So if India can somehow manage to make a place for itself in those countries, small countries, I don't mean that you go to Colombia. Well, there are small countries like Ecuador. There are small countries like Bolivia. Go there. The medicines are very, very life-saving drugs. I mean, are very expensive, and India can offer those and play a major role. El Salvador, Guatemala, these countries, they can do. And this is not to say that they're poor countries, but those are the countries where India can really get into. And I feel, I could be again wrong. There could be people who can say, whatever Huma is saying is wrong. Could be, but my thinking as a journalist, as a reporter who has been covering the region for so many years, I feel that we still have a long way to go. Really, a long, long way to go. Do we think we have done enough? No. Should we do more? Yes. Do we need to sort of, report about the region? Of course. Do many people do report about the region? No. You know it. You read the newspapers every day. You would know not many publications or many think tanks here in India. They're not really focused on Latin America. And when I say Latin America, I mean Latin America and the Caribbean. They're not really focused. We just talk half-hearted. When, let's say, tomorrow the president of Chile is coming, so we are very excited about it. But have we written enough about Chile? No. Why not? Because for many people, like today, somebody was arguing with me, Huma, why do you keep writing about these countries? Who's bothered? So I always go around telling people that, if my government is looking at these countries, there must be a reason. And it is for us to find out. May not be attractive as, the US or Europe,
mm,
but these are the countries which are playing a very important role as far as our food and energy security is concerned. So we need to look at them a little bit more seriously than just football and just yoga and just Bollywood.
mm,
That's, I mean, my take.
right, right,
I don't mean any offense to anyone, but my take. Yeah.
yeah. Great. Fantastic, Ms. Siddiqui. I now want to take the interview towards more on the journalistic aspect of India and Latin America. So, I would like to know that how has journalism on Latin America in India historically been?
Poor.
Mm-hmm.
One word. I mean, again, you are free to remove or take it or whatever. I personally feel I'm giving you my journey from 93 onwards, and I'm telling you, when I started writing, it could be a repetition of what I've said before, but when I started writing, there was hardly anyone writing. And fast forward in the 2020, let's say 2020 onwards, or let's say 2000 onwards. Let's go back into 2000 onwards. Hardly any, unless you are, the prime minister or a president,
Mm,
or a, accident happens. When did people come to know that there was a country like Ecuador?
mm,
When the helicopters, given by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited crashed, then people started getting on. That HAL Dhruv helicopter has crashed in Ecuador,
mm,
and so many people died. Okay,
mhm,
maybe two, three people wrote about it. End of the story. Do people know that there's something known as Sika? Do people know there is something known as, SILAC? All those things. There are people who know. This is not to say that they don't know, but are they writing about it?
mm,
No. Why? Because it doesn't get them the eyeballs. So then you will turn around and say, but that's not correct, Ms. Siddiqui. Of course, it is not correct totally. Why? Because we are, discussing free trade agreements
mhm,
with countries like Chile or Mercosur or who else? Maybe Ecuador,
mhm,
maybe Colombia. We are just talking, right? So maybe you see one paragraph or one small column that will come out in some newspapers, and that's it.
mhm,
But you say, but then that's good news. But in my eyes, that's not enough. More can
mhm,
be written because there is more to writing except that one discussion. I'm talking about the expansion of Mercosur. I'm talking about the expansion of the trade agreement that I have with Chile. That's it. Is that all?
mhm,
But I would feel that there is more to it. So how is more to it? It depends from publication to publication. I worked in a financial daily, so my entire focus was on food, energy, um, trade and investment. And of course, since defense and space is also part of my responsibility, I focused on that as well. I tried to push as much as I could, but then
mhm,
suddenly people started imagining that, there could be somebody is funding somebody to write all this. But that's
mhm,
not the truth. The truth is
mhm,
that we need to write more, which is why I don't know if you are aware of this. As an individual, I gave an opportunity to many young scholars to write about the region in my publication, and they wrote, And after they started writing, many other publications started picking up the idea that, hey, you know what? There is more to the region than we know. It's not all about drugs, and it is
Mhm.
not all about football. There is more to it. So now 2024, 25, there's a little bit of, little bit of
Mhm.
an, upward trend, because a lot of big visits are happening in the region,
Mhm.
whether it is Brazil, whether it is Paraguay, whether it is Argentina, whether it is Colombia, with our external affairs minister traveling in those countries. It's very important. Or whether it is the air chief going to LARD in Brazil,
Mhm.
or, Siddharth, you must understand, every newspaper does not think that the region deserves that kind of a space. That's where the heartbreak is. You need to really look at it very, with an open mind. I'm looking at the region because my food and energy security depends on the region right now. With the way things are moving around in the world, I'm looking at the region in a different way. You
Mhm.
could be looking at it from another angle. I
Mhm.
urge everyone, hey, you know what? Just go out and look at it. And so then that brings me to the same point why I travel, which you asked me. I travel
Mhm.
because I want to learn more about the region,
Mhm.
not because I'm going there to eat the local food.
Mhm.
No, I'm going there just to see what this is all about. Why the hell is India so interested? Why is Jaishankar traveling all the way there after 30 hours of our air travel? Whether he's, or our other MOS, why are they all traveling? They understand the importance, but is that enough? No, more
Mhm.
needs to be done. Even India needs to really do more in that region. We have so much to offer. Yeah, we really have so much to offer. Beyond yoga and beyond Ayurveda, we have lots and lots. Our education system is so strong. Our technology is so awesome. Our IT sector is so awesome. Our auto sector is so strong.
Mhm.
We can really go places if we want.
Mhm.
I feel that we need to do more.
Right. Right.
Whether you call it journalism, whether you call it commercial, journalist to zero. Journalism in terms of reporting is zero.
Mhm. Mhm.
No,
Mhm.
it's only I will write about the trade agreement, expansion of the trade agreement with Chile,
Mhm.
because the Chilean president is coming here, and
Mhm.
that's it.
Mhm.
And that will be the end of it. Till
Mhm.
you get another president here, and then I will say, hey, you know what? The Paraguayan is coming, and so Paraguay needs this, and we can give this, and that will be the end of the story. First, then you say, who cares about Paraguay? Huma, what does Paraguay give to us? You know, those are the kind of questions that I often answer to my bosses. But there you are. That's the way it is. And
Mhm.
so that's why when you asked me this question in journalism, Latin America reportage, zero.
Mhm.
Maybe 0.000 point, whatever it is, 0.0001%.
Mhm. Mhm. Right.
Only when you have a soccer or football, that World Cup when happens,
Mhm.
Argentina is playing, then everyone is going crazy. Colombia is playing, everyone is wearing suddenly the Colombian vest or whatever you call it, a jersey. They all are doing all that, but are we getting a good reportage? No.
Mhm. Well,
Do
yeah,
we
I mean,
have
you
any
talk about,
oxygen?
yeah, yeah, you talk about football, ma'am. Definitely, I think when Argentina does well in football World Cups, like it did last World Cup, I think there was a lot of craze
Yeah.
about them, and the fact that the FIFA this the coming upcoming World Cup in 2026 will be 48 countries participating. So I'm expecting that will probably give space for a few more smaller Latin American countries to probably come on stage, and if that happens, probably that will help the Indian audience sort of
Yeah,
know a little
and
bit more.
like I would, in fact, I would urge you also. You have been the little that I know of you and of your podcasts. You have been relentlessly picking out people, talking about the region and both ways.
Yeah.
And I would want you to do more because
Mhm.
there is really more that you can do. There is lots. It's not only the big countries in the region. There are small countries equally important for us. And again, it's not about lithium. It is not is people to people. That is very important. Um, like you said, when the World Cup happens, there will be more countries participating. So let's hope that more, our Indian media picks them up.
Mhm.
Whether it is whichever country is playing, it would be
Mhm.
really awesome. But
Right.
yeah, that's the way I look at it.
Right.
Again, due apologies to anyone. I don't mean any malice to anyone. It's just that I feel that we don't do enough, and I think I set off a trend where I started writing so people realize that these things are important, and which is why I focus a lot more on the economic diplomacy than anything else. Because if that is attracting you, then I think I have done what I set out to do. So, yeah. I don't mean you. I mean, if my
Right.
other colleagues are attracted by the fact that, oh, okay, we can write about this and we should talk about this, so why
Mhm.
not?
Right.
So why
Right.
not?
Right. Right. Absolutely, Ms. Siddiqui. In fact, the endeavor of this channel of mine is to educate more people and get the regions closer to each other. And so, whatever little effort that I'm making, hopefully that will. And this interview is part of that process itself. To have someone as seasoned as you talk about this will go out to a lot of people. And the fact that this is in English, although most of my interviews are in Spanish, but because some of them are in English, sort of helps in the sense that it reaches out to more people. So in India, especially. So thank you so much, Ms. Siddiqui. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you as a pioneer in writing about Latin America. I think you're doing a great service to the nation. So thank you so much for your time, and absolute pleasure to hear some of the interesting anecdotes that you shared and about the potential of India and Latin America. And I hope that this interview will go a long way in contributing towards strengthening the relations between India and Latin America. So once again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me here, Siddharth. And I know you're doing a great job as well. And I wish you really all the best. And it was really a pleasure, huh? And I just my last line, guys. We really need to look at the region both ways. It cannot be one-sided. It has to be both ways. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you
Ms.
so
Siddiqui.
much.
And I
Thank you.
hope that my listeners and viewers have been able to watch this and listen to this. So very soon it will be uploaded on Spotify as well. And in the meantime, please do continue to look more about Latin America. As Ms. Siddiqui has said, that this region has a lot more to offer, and we have a lot more to offer towards that region as well. So thank you so much. Hasta el siguiente capítulo de Español por Dentro. Ciao.